Good evening and welcome to March 9th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. A meeting was held at 6 p.m. in the council chambers of City Hall for clarification of the agenda. The following is the official agenda of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Discussion and commission actions will be limited to the items on the agenda. Any citizen wishing to address the commission shall first be recognized by the chair. If a citizen wishes to read documentation of any sort to the commission, he or she shall first seek permission from the chair. Aislinn, will you call roll?
Crystal Chanda.
Here, and I have nothing to disclose.
Whitney Fenwick.
Here, and I have nothing to disclose.
Marjana Hewitt.
I'm here and nothing to disclose.
Rich Phillips.
Here with nothing to disclose.
Nate Roberts.
Here with nothing to disclose.
And Shinkyu Rue.
Here and nothing to disclose.
And Dakota Worrell is excused this evening.
Thank you, Aislinn. So next we will, agenda item number 2 is approval of the minutes. Commission, do you have any questions or see any revisions that needed made on the minutes? If not, I would request a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Second?
I have a motion by Rue and a second by Phillips. Aislinn, will you call vote?
Rue.
Yes.
Phillips.
Yes.
Chanda.
Yes.
Fenwick.
Yes.
Hewlett.
Yes.
Roberts.
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, accessory use solar PV. City staff will be in attendance to present to the commission an overview of the Soul Smart program and what has been done to address the city's 2019 clean energy resolution regarding the solar PV. This time I'd like to invite city staff.
Hi there. My name is Jennifer Flynn, and I work for the Department of Public Works here at the city. I'm here this evening just to share some information with you about the Soul Smart program, just to give you a little bit of history about why I'm involved with this. I'm a member of the city's Energy Task Force, which was formed out of the resolution that was signed back in 2019. And really, the task force has taken action and met multiple times just to pursue different things that the city can do to be more energy efficient and more environmentally friendly. So the Soul Smart program is an example of action that we've taken to really just open up, any kind of obstacles that might have been there to pursue solar energy, either for residents or commercial businesses. So Soul Smart is a national program that basically just seeks to make the solar process more transparent and more available to anybody in a community. And a consultant came to us that works for Warm Springs Consulting. They got our name through a group that we're a part of called Resilient Idaho Cities. And they just said, hey, this is a program that's available to you. It's free. And, why don't you take a look at it and see if you'd be interested in being a part of it. So we did. And really, it took the action of the building department and the planning department to achieve a silver designation. And that's what we're going for. So at the bottom of this document, you can see kind of some actions that we've taken to achieve the silver designation. We don't have it yet, but probably by the end of this week, we'll have all of the paperwork finalized and turned into the Soul Smart people. And then really it's just a feather in our hat or a sticker we can put on our website that says you're Soul Smart designated and you've taken steps you need to make solar more accessible. Anything else you want to say, Brent?
Yeah. So in the second page you have there is a memo that I drafted to give a determination on the application process for solar as an accessory use in the community. Our current code it doesn't specifically identify solar in any part of the code, but we have historically processed solar uses as an accessory use. And so what this memo does is it helps to solidify that process that someone would have to go through to apply for solar on their house or on their business. And part of this is to meet some of the requirements to attain the Soul Smart designation, to help outline that process of how someone would go through a permit process to obtain some solar use on their property. And so that's what that letter is. So I don't know if you have any questions for us or.
I do. Can you explain to me what a by right accessory use is and what that means in practical terms for the everyday person?
Yeah, absolutely. So a by right accessory use is a use that doesn't have to go through any type of approval process with a governing body such as yourself or the hearings examiner, like a shed or something of that nature. If someone wants to put solar panels on their house, they can by right put solar panels on their house. You don't have to go get special approval through a hearing process to do so.
Thank you.
Yep.
And is that for residential and commercial the same?
Yes, it is.
So,
Yeah,
I do
go
have one more. So does that apply then, putting it on a house? What about freestanding solar structures?
It would be allowed as freestanding, but you'd still have to meet all the setback requirements and other requirements that you would for like a shed.
Okay,
There's still requirements you have to meet, but we treat it just like any other accessory structure.
okay.
Commission, any other questions? I would just like to commend the city and you guys for taking on this task.
Thank you.
Obviously, it's something very big right now, so it's important that we be up to date on it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We will now move on to agenda item number 4. It's a public hearing for preliminary plat file 22-306. This time has been set aside for the commission to hear comments from the public regarding the request by, I'm not even going to try. Duchesne, represented by Joe Taylor and Clayton Holbrook, for the preliminary plat application to subdivide 2.8 acres more or less into 27 lots, one of which will be for the stormwater retention. The proposed subdivision is generally located west of the intersection of Nora and Stockman Avenue. This is a public hearing, so I would ask everybody to silence their cell phones. There will be a 10-minute time limit for the applicant. There's 3-minute limit on public testimony. Names are required for those presenting and testifying. Questions and comments should be pertinent to the application and be addressed to the commission. As this is a public hearing, there should be no questions, comments, or applause from the audience. Should the meeting go longer than 8 p.m., the commission may take a scheduled 10-minute break. Commission members must make their decision regarding the application on facts already in the record and information presented at the public hearing. Conflict of interest, site visits, and ex parte contacts by the commission members was acknowledged. Protocol requires that the commission members and audience first be recognized by the commission chair prior to speaking. At this time, I declare the public hearing open. And I would like to invite the applicant to come to the podium.
Hi, My name is Clayton Holbrook. I represent Duchesne 2016 LLC. Our group, our company is called the Muddy Boys. We're down in Orem, Utah. My wife is from Pocatello, and that's my interest in Pocatello because we spend a lot of time here anyway. So what we have is very, very simple. It's an infill project, 27 lots, 26 home sites. We've worked very closely with staff, and I have to applaud your staff. They're just very good to work with. It's been very enjoyable, very knowledgeable, very helpful. Everywhere I turn, they're always willing to go the extra mile. And we've done a lot of work to check all the boxes and make sure that we're not, trying to cut any corners or anything like that. So, any questions? I don't know what else you want to know.
Well, you have over 8 minutes left still. You could tell us a little bit about what you're planning to do.
Oh, okay. We are planning on building, the zoning allowed us a lot of different options. We personally like single-family homes, so we're trying to build single-family homes. And we waffle back and forth with what size they should be and how big they should be. And the best-selling home in America is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage home. So we're going to try to fit that mold because that's what people like. So that's what people buy, and it makes it livable for a family. They are tight, but they're not so tight. In fact, we got rid of 3 lots from our original layout so that we could make it a little more conducive to the lot size and how it runs and stuff. But that's our goal, is to build a nice little subdivision where people can have a nice place to home, to live and raise a family if they need to, or retire or whatever. So we're going to try very hard to make it so that they're not cookie cutter type things. We're going to have multiple designs, different different plans, different configurations, different looks on the outside. We'll have some flat roofs, we'll have some pitched roofs, so that we make it a little more interesting. Anyway, we're builders, we're developers. Our company does drywall, steel framing. We do a lot of construction. We've been in business for years and years and years. So currently, we're working on a huge building down in Ephraim, Utah. That I know that doesn't have anything to do with you. Just to give you a background for us. So we have a lot of experience in building. Anyway, I really don't know what else to say. Any questions?
Any questions for the applicant?
Do you know what your plan is for average square foot for these homes?
Again, we've waffled back and forth. So we probably won't be smaller than 1,200 square feet, but we won't be larger than 2,000 square feet. So, which would be a really big home on that lot, yes. So I'm thinking, this is my opinion, and I have 4 brothers that I work with, but I'm thinking they will be 1,500 square feet. That's what I'm thinking. We're working with designers right now to make some really nice floor plans I'm really big into utility. It has to be functional. And so we want to use every square inch just as effectively as we can. And we want to design it so we don't have long hallways, so it's really efficient as far as building and costs and stuff like that. But we're just not cracker box type people. So we should have some unique designs and looks.
Are you planning any 2-level homes in that area, or?
Possibly,
Okay.
yeah. So if you put a 600 square foot footprint, and you put a basement in it, and I don't know, we haven't had a soils report done yet So if you put a basement in it and you go 600 on the main and 600 up, then you got an 1,800 square foot home. So, and that footprint would fit in our, buildable area. If you go a little bigger and you have 1,000 square foot, then you might have a one level, one above ground. If the lava shows up, we may not put basements in because we don't want to fight that. Have fought that before, and we usually lose. So anyway, it will be whatever we can do that the ground will let us do. So our hope is to put basements in. That's what our original conversation is. But we know that that might not be a possibility. We might end up doing crawl space homes. Worst case scenario, we may do pillar homes. So,
Thank you.
yep.
Commission, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, I would like to invite staff to come forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. My name is Carl Anderson. I'm with the City of Pocatello Planning Department, for the record. The application I have for you is Gateway North preliminary plat. The applicant's Duchesne Land 2016, represented by Clayton Holbrook. The surveyor and engineer is Creek Hollow and Associates. So the request is for the preliminary plat approval, as previously stated for Gateway North. The proposed subdivision is a replat of a portion of the South Park subdivision, which is in the staff report, which the commission should have before them as attachment C. The proposal calls for the platting of 2.807 acres, more or less, into 27 lots. One of those lots will be for stormwater retention. The proposed subdivision is generally located west of the intersection of Nora Avenue and Stockman Avenue. All notification requirements for the public hearing have been met. As of the completion of the staff report and the meeting today, I have not received any written public comment. I've received a few phone calls inquiring about the application, but I have no comment to submit. So the subject property is zoned residential medium density single family. And the presentation will be from a high level. I won't dive into every criteria from the subdivision standards, but I will focus a little bit on the density and lot design for the commission. So the subject property is zoned residential medium density single family. The minimum lot size in the RMS zone is 5,000 square feet. The smallest lot is 3,005 square feet, or 0.069 acres. The applicant is utilizing the infill and redevelopment standards as permitted under Title 17 zoning regulations in order to meet the minimum lot size requirement utilizing these infill development standards. So under the infill development standards, under applicability, this application is applicable. These standards are applicable to this application where it's zoned RMS, or residential medium density single family. Any parcel that is bounded on two or more sides by existing development and where utilities are abutting in streets and or alleyways so that extension of trunk utility lines is not required. And documentation can be provided showing that the parcel meets any of the two of the following criteria. And there are three criteria, A, B, and C. I've kind of grayed out some of the other text here to draw attention to these things. But it meets item A, where the parcel is less than 300 feet of frontage along the public street. There is a parcel separating it from Stockman Avenue that is owned by the city of Pocatello, so that frontage is taken along Nora, which is how that requirement has been met. And item B, which is the latter parcel, was platted in its current configuration prior to 1981. This is part of a previous subdivision, I believe South Park subdivision, which was 1946. It is a portion of a lot, so the parcel is in its, it is currently a parcel, but it was platted prior to 1981. So I'm not sure when that parcel, as it currently stands, was established, but again, it was platted prior to 1981. And staff finds that it meets this criteria as well. Under the infill development standards, RMS lot sizes, so there's kind of two options they can take. One is section A there, which I've left out because that's not what we're looking at here. We're looking at section B, which is basically to make better use of the land at locations where strict application of minimum lot size requirements precludes efficient infill and redevelopment. The lots within a subdivision may be reduced in accordance with the following. Absent a variance, no lot shall be reduced to less than 60% of the minimum size established by the standards of the underlying zoning district. So the standard, the underlying zoning district is 5,000 square feet. It's 60 percent of that is 3,000 square feet, therefore the minimum would be 3,000 square feet. If they were taking advantage of the Section A here, it would be 40%. However, it would require some land dedication for open space, some other things like that to get them to that additional. Under that section B2 there, reduced lot sizes must provide a land area with dimensions sufficient to accommodate buildings, parking lots in accordance with land use setbacks and other requirements of the underlying zoning district. As the applicant stated during their presentation, they do have some plans for some smaller homes there. Any home that is built there will have to meet our setback standards. Being RMS, the side yard setbacks are 6 feet on either side, the rear's 20, the front's 20 to the home and 25 to the front of the garage. The applicant hasn't requested a variance to parking setbacks or other dimensional standards at this time. Now, the commission should be advised that they may be able to take advantage of the administrative adjustment application, which allows for a 10% modification to those setbacks, which they had indicated verbally they may do in the future. However, these are things that would be reviewed at the time of building permit. And I've not reviewed a site plan for a specific lot and looked at layouts or things like that. But so that's something that they will have to make sure that they are planning ahead and make sure that they have footprints that will meet the zoning requirements. So under infill development standards, again, some things that would be reviewed at the time of building permit. So just wanted to highlight these just so the commission's aware. Materials for the new dwellings. The new dwelling unit shall be built with materials compatible with dwellings on abutting parcels or facing the subject block unless the case can be made for an alternative design. Trees, one tree a minimum size of 1 1/2 inch caliper shall be planted in a planter strip or front yard for every 35 feet of frontage. And D, parking areas shall be located behind buildings wherever possible. And for this last one too, where the applicant's kind of proposing, the parking would be accessed off the front, so their development would have that be possible to be accessed off the back of those properties. Sorry, So attach the plat here that the applicant has submitted. You can see that they will be crossing that city-owned parcel as mentioned, separating the property from Stockman. And it will loop around to be a new road to be called Sunset Way onto Nora. Lot 7 in the south westmost corner is the stormwater retention location. And just kind of providing you with a brief overview of this. I've also attached I apologize for how zoomed in we are here, but I've attached the South Park subdivision from, again, I believe 1946. You'll see up there in the right corner. This is a portion of the track 2 of block 4 of this original plat. So there's that. So again, try to keep my presentation kind of high level, being infill development standards. This is one of the first applications I've reviewed through a subdivision that utilized infill development standards, and I believe it's the second one that the city has reviewed. The first, the name escapes me, but again, so I try to keep it high level and focus on that a little bit. But staff finds that it meets the criteria under City Code 16.20, assuming the conditions in the staff report are met. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Carl, thank you for going over that infill in a little bit more detail to make sure we understood it. I appreciate that for sure. Commission, do you have any questions for staff?
I have a question. So can you just take a minute to explain why we have this new infill standard, why we want this for city? What's its purpose? This is anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so the infill development standards are not new. They've been in city code, at least since I started. The current infill development standards were recently rewritten. Because in the time that I was here, I don't believe that an application had utilized those standards. So They were recently amended. I believe it was last year or the year before. But our comprehensive plan calls out certain policies and objectives to incentivize infill development standards. And I apologize, I can't riff the purpose of the infill development standards from city code off the top of my head, but it is to make land that is currently undeveloped within the city of Pocatello that is bounded by adjacent development easier to develop and more developable. Prior to our meeting, I did a quick calculation just to see what it would be if it were zoned residential medium density single family. And it's, you know, if you're just taking the net, which was again 2.807 acres times 43560, and divide that by 5,000, that was about 24 units if you don't round up or down. The applicant's requesting 26. And so what this has done is allowed them to configure this in such a way that they're able to access those lots and make that land more developable, as I understand it anyways. So again, I believe the intent of the infill development standards is to make these infill lots easier to develop, in short.
Any other questions?
Yeah. What, and I needed to ask, the city owns a chunk of property, and I mentioned this in the previous one, I'd like to have it on the public record. Can you just speak to me about what is planned for that chunk of city property that's at the front of the subdivision? What is the city going to do with it? What's it?
Yeah, I'll defer to the Public Works Department for that.
Merrill Quell, the Public Works Engineer for the City of Pocatello. As we looked at this property and everything, gone through it and that, we were able to allow the road to go across because it is a existing right-of-way that was NORA when it was platted. And since then, the intersection was realigned and everything to come into Stockman more to the 90 and to square things up. However, we had utilities in that area too, more specifically the sewer and a little bit of the water on the edge. So we are retaining that. If we wouldn't have had that, we would have asked them just to vacate it and take it into their development. But the plan is that would be like an extra wide planter strip. It's going to be landscaped with some probably xeriscape, so that nothing too fancy, because again, we have utilities under it that we may have to dig up, so we don't want something real fancy in that, but it will be dressed up, cleaned up. It could be utilized possibly as a, kind of the small recreational area for there. It's pretty substantial when you actually look at it that way. Put it in a place where you go out and throw a baseball or something like that. So I know we've talked about with the developer several ideas that they've kicked around, but that's the thought process from the city and what we would allow on that property so that it could still be utilized in a fashion and add to the development.
Okay, thank you.
Meryl?
Yes.
I'm assuming elevations aren't allowing you to tie in sewer into Nora or Stockman.
That is correct because of the elevation. So an easement has been procured and granted with an adjacent property owner so that the sewer will run through that property roughly 300 feet and come out and hook into Jason down below, eliminating any need for lift stations or anything like that. So we will take advantage of the gravity situation.
The water is showing like a secondary water line. Is that
There's not a secondary. I'm not 100% sure there. There's just this water line loop that'll tie into Nora and then come back around into Stockman, so that we have a loop system there for these 27 lots. So, and then as we talked about earlier, the corporations stop close to the access points where the new valve taps will be done, so that will promote the chlorination, the disinfection at closer to the source. So we're there. So that's a typical practice that we do in the city.
Maybe it's a line type thing, but I'm seeing a weird.
Real quick, sorry.
No, you're good. So there's this big one and then there's this smaller one that goes clear. Okay. And that leads me to my next question. It's just different for me to see that is this going to be a private road?
No, it
Okay.
will be a public road.
Okay. To see the road running parallel and right on the property line, do we see that being a
No,
problem?
We will have the curb and gutter at the bottom and there, so that will direct the stormwater. And there's a buffer along there too. I'm not seeing an issue to it. Just to be able to optimize again, encourage that infill, whatever we can do to make things kind of to fill in there. And this has been vacated as long as I've been at the city and familiar with this area. So I don't see a problem with it. We've accommodated the drainage, and that would be the biggest issue along there. And then if the neighbors are there, need to do fences, of course, they allow that. So if that becomes an issue, right now there's rentals on the other side. So at that point, not that that matters, but I know that they're there.
Thank you.
I have a question. Can you talk to me about the stormwater runoff to the detention area and overflow from that and how that will be handled?
Yeah, same way. Stormwater lot is at the southwest corner. And the water will all be directed to there. And as you look, there's the system within that's showing there. And then we always require an overflow because, as you know, we get some of these wild storms in Pocatello that give us more water than we need in a 10-minute period. So in that, we have the overflows to that, which will have an easement that goes down across the neighboring property down through their driveway. But there also is a pipe that takes care of the majority of that water. That water comes down and it will intersect with Jason. And in the east curb line of Jason, there will be a bubble up structure, which will allow the water to go down and bubble up back up into the curb line and flow down, because there's not a stormwater system until you get down, they're probably 300 yards down the road before you connect to the system within Jason. So we're allowing the curb and the roadway to be the conveyance system, which is also outlined in the Portneuf Valley Stormwater Design Manual.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So at this time, I would like to just clarify, I think we already have that there's been no written correspondence submitted. Aislinn, haven't received anything, thank you. So before starting the public testimony, I would like to remind everybody that when you come to the podium, please state your name. Remember to address the commission rather than the audience or the applicant. You will be given 3 minutes. When this time runs out, I will ask you to stop. Keep questions and comments pertinent to the application, and please don't duplicate any questions, concerns, or comments covered by previous testimony heard. So at this time, I would like to invite anybody supporting the application to come forward. No? Anyone providing testimony uncommitted to the application? Anyone opposed to the application?
Can I give you guys a printout that I'd like to show?
Sure.
One of the issues that I have, my name's Brian Nice. I live at 3781 Stockman Road, where the South Road actually comes out. One of my concerns is when we bought the property, we bought in that neighborhood because it is RMS, because there's decent sized yards and, 5,000 or more square feet. We have a half an acre. I'm not against developing this road, but I am against poor development. And looking at that road design, if you look at Nora Avenue as it comes out to Stockman, they want to put intersections of 2 new public roads in very close proximity to an existing road. They realigned that road because it was already an issue. And that's why they changed that alignment since the subdivision. Now they want to put 2 more roads in there, and it's the downhill side of that road. I don't know if anybody's drove by here, but you're looking uphill and it's pretty blind, and people come around that corner really fast. And to put 2 more intersections within 100 feet of another intersection doesn't make sense to me. The other thing that doesn't make sense is if you look at the road right-of-way on the westerly side of the plot, look at the relationship of that road right-of-way to the 2 existing apartment buildings. They're about 6 feet away from the property line. So essentially what we're saying is, if this property isn't developable, let's throw out all the rules and do what we want. And putting a road right-of-way 6 feet from 2 different fourplexes is pretty much putting their property into non-compliance. And if that was my property, I think that would be a really big disadvantage of having a road 6 or 8 feet away from my, bedroom. And, I don't have any interest in those apartments, but, I think that's a really poor design. And I think, this property could be designed in an RMS standard. And if you shrink these lots so small, there's not going to be any off-street parking. So any visitors that come into there, there's not going to be room for, curb where people can come and visit their friends at these houses and park in front out in the street. These lots are 35 feet wide. You put in, a driveway, there's no room for extra parking out there. So that's going to overflow parking out into Nora Street and Stockman. And I just really think it's a poor design. I think that this property could be developed in a better way and have a better design. And, I would hope that you guys take that into consideration for the people that live here and have invested their time and living in this neighborhood and not coming into town and just minimizing every requirement for a subdivision to make as much money as possible.
Time, thank you.
Okay.
Can I get your first and last name?
Brian Nice, N-I-C-E.
Thank you.
Anybody else that would like to provide testimony opposing the application?
Hi there. My name's Andrea Kern. That's my partner. We both live at 3781 Stockman Road. We bought up there about 7 years ago. It's a great neighborhood. I'm assuming no one here.
Address the commission, please.
I'm assuming no one here lives up there. I would encourage you to drive up and look at the neighborhood. That neighborhood feels more like a medium density neighborhood, and I think that's kind of what the city earmarked it to be. And this proposed development would be high density. I think they're trying to do too much in too little. Under 3 acres, 24 to 27 houses in under 3 acres. We live on a half acre, and I can't imagine having 6 homes on that half acre. So I would encourage you to drive out and look at that property, look at the properties around it. Like my partner said, do you really want a road 6 feet from your bedroom? I know rentals don't really matter much, but they do because people in our community live there. So I would really like for you to consider reducing the amount of development. I know that we live in a quantity world, but I really would love to see some quality. I think that Pocatello is a quality place unless we decide to continue to buy, to build quantity properties. I would like to think that we have more pride of place. I know that we have a housing issue, but I don't know about you, but I don't want to live on top of other people. I like to have a little bit of room. Living in Idaho, we have a little bit of elbow room. And I'd like to see that have people keep that as an awareness for our community. I know that we've had these issues in other places in this community, and I just really hope that you take a minute to think about how big of a development in how small of a space. I know that it's going to get developed, but I would love to see a dozen nice homes instead of 24 little tiny homes. It doesn't matter what they look like. If they're tiny and people have to live on top of each other, that's not really great quality of living. It's more just a place to rest your head. And it's really beautiful out there. And deer bed down in that less than 3-acre parcel, just so you know. That's a winter pathway for animals. We have turkeys out there. We've seen other animals, and the more that we develop, the less that the animals have space for. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you guys all being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else providing testimony opposing the application? With that, I would ask the applicant if he would like to rebuttal.
Again, my name's Clayton Holbrook. I understand the concerns. And yes, we are trying to make a dollar. That's what we do. And things have gotten so expensive, it's become very difficult to make a dollar, which has forced developers to maximize the use of the land. There is a buffer between their area, and there is parking with the design that we've made. The lower street will accommodate a number of cars on the very west side of the road, and also on the east side of the lower road. So if somebody is coming to visit and they can't park in someone's driveway, there is parking there. The piece of property that the city owns is a buffer between the street and the subdivision. It will increase traffic. That's typically what happens when developments go in and subdivisions go in. We have worked very hard to overcome a bunch of problems to make it, workable and usable, and still make it so that it's viable. Because if it's not viable, then it can't happen. I'd love to build 12 homes on there, and those homes would be $1 million homes, and that wouldn't be feasible. So, I know development tends to disrupt a number of things, and so you try to do your best to cover all your bases and to meet as many needs as you possibly can. I'm sensitive to that. I've lived in the subdivisions where it has been affected by same things. So anyway, trying to make a really nice subdivision, trying to make it nice, spending extra money doing certain things that will make it nice. And that's basically all I have to say. So.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Excuse me, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You mentioned that there were some challenges with this property that made it so that you decided to go this higher density route. Can you explain to me what those were?
The cost of materials, for instance, we couldn't go into Nora with our sewer, so we had to go get an easement. So we talked to a bunch of neighbors and said, would you be willing? That extra, going through someone else's property, that's not free. That'll cost us, a significant amount of money. And every time you spend more money, then you have to recoup that, which means you have to maximize your density. We've actually eliminated 4 lots from our original design. 2 of those lots went to the detention area, which we would have lost anyway, but we chose to reduce 2 lots in the center of the horseshoe so that we could make those lots bigger to make the homes nicer and there's a little more space. I've seen a lot of these subdivisions where there's 6 feet between, the setback on the side is 6 feet. And they tend to work on, is it Swisher? Swisher. Swisher, those side setbacks are 6 feet. Those twin homes, I believe those are 6 feet away from each other. I don't know how long they've been there, but they've been there a long time. So it's not out of character for the neighborhood. We're trying to make them look nice. We're trying to make them look different so that they don't all look the same, and yet still bring it all together. Does that answer your question?
I was just interested in, like, the one example you gave about having to buy an easement, if there are other aspects of the property that made it tricky to develop.
The cost of-
part of it, I mean, there's a reason this has remained undeveloped for a long time.
In the
so.
last year, the cost of pipe has doubled. The cost of building materials, we're building a building I mentioned down in Ephraim, we're 20% over budget because of cost of materials. Some materials we haven't been able to get. They have been very difficult. I mean, we've called all areas of the country. We bought our roofing material from North Carolina because we couldn't find it here locally. So, all of that takes time, costs money. It's part of the process. And it's the world we live in now, and we're, trying to adapt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Carl, will you remind me of the difference in numbers of this based on they would be allowed 24, and with this, they're getting 20?
6.
So 2 more than,
That doesn't include the road, though.
Yeah, so, sorry. Just one moment. So, yeah, again, that calculation was prior to our meeting, just based on raw land area.
okay.
Yeah, it's not factoring in.
Got it, thank you. And then, Merrill, are we thinking this is going to generate enough traffic that we're going to need to see a traffic study or anything like that?
There won't be a traffic analysis or anything done there. These roads are residential roads. They're 25-mile-an-hour roads. And the way the intersections are lined up and that will work there. And just for the thing, just to disclose, I am one of the adjacent lots there. So if you ask about not there, I walk my dogs by your house 3 times a week, and I think this is a great development. So thank you.
Can you develop a road
So,
right-of-way?
sir, you've been given your time. I'm sure that,
I will.
I'm sure that the staff would be more than happy to answer your questions at another time. Go ahead.
There is one road right away, what he talked about. We are not 6 feet away from those duplexes. Those duplexes are next to where the round is in that, and we're further away.
Where I was asking about.
The straightaway is next to the other duplex, which we're at least 20, 25 feet, if not more, away from the road, where the road's going to be. So we have looked at that, and we have covered it, and this does meet our standards.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, I will declare the public hearing closed. And Commission, this is our time to discuss, share our thoughts.
I guess my thoughts is basically kind of the role of the commission is basically it fills, I mean, there are concerns, of course, by neighbors, but at the same time, the commission is also bounded. I mean, if they're meeting all the standards and requirements that the city has legally set for them, I'm kind of wondering.
I'd like to chime in just really quick too. Just really quick, and I apologize, Commission, but one thing tonight that I would just kind of like to point out, I'm thinking maybe Merrill could speak to this a little bit. So part of the infill parcel criteria, it says infill parcels, an infill development parcel, any parcel that is bounded on 2 or more sides by existing development or natural constraints, waterways, steep slopes, resource protections areas, and where utilities are available in abutting streets or an alleyway so that extension of trunk utility lines is not required. One thing that was brought up tonight, it sounds like the applicant is connecting to sewer through an easement, not on either Stockman or Nora. And I'm wondering if our Public Works engineer could speak to that a little bit as to why they're not connecting into the sewer in Nora or Stockman.
I believe elevations, because it has to flow downhill.
That is correct. It's either that because of the elevation, because this property is on a slope. If people think flat is flat, but there's the slope, and the topography will not allow us to gravity to Stockman or Nora. And so that easement going through Jason to deal with the stormwater and that. If that wasn't acquired and everything, we would have lift stations that would be ongoing power bills, maintenance, and all of that. So this is a system that we always encourage and try to look for when possible to let gravity take the course versus trying to use more energy and the efficiency going this way. So that is for the topography. And there was some, like I said, we've looked at stuff at the city too, that has been many different types of developments here. And this one does fit the neighborhood, like we said, pointed out with the with townhouses, single family, duplexes, and so forth. They were county lots in the past that were acre lots, a lot of them, and then they were broken to half acre and down to smaller lots. But we do have this development throughout that has the more dense and mixed use scenario through the neighborhood. So,
Thank you.
Merrill, if I can ask a follow-up question of you. So is it the sewer hookup issue? Why has this not been developed before now? It's got development all the way around it. Why has this remained vacant?
most of it is just because looking at the different, one of it is the sewer. This applicant has been able to work with a new owner that has bought the duplexes that they're going down through within the last 3 or 4 years. Prior to that, there was other property owners before the duplexes went in and that had half acre and acre lots that didn't want anything to do with the sewer. So that was a big one. Lift stations, because they didn't want to put in a lift station and so forth. This property, probably 18 years ago was looked at, and a couple of the neighbors out there looked at it trying to be a park and tried to rally the neighbors and everything else together to get a park and that out of it and everything. And the neighborhood did not want that, so I just, like I said, I've lived out there for just a little over 20 years in that particular part of town. And so I know a lot of history about that property and the neighbors and so forth. And this is compared to the other developments, and maybe I'm going too far because I am there, but other developments that has been proposed there, this one is, like I said, meeting the standards and is an acceptable development for the mixed use as it's zoned.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I just say, with a comprehensive plan, I mean, part of the goal with infill, this is just my 2 cents worth here, but is to make the best use of the city's resources and fill in where there's places where development hasn't happened. We're not having to expand into actual winter range outside city limits. We're not having to build out. We're filling up what we have, and so I actually am a big supporter of infill. I think it's the city making the best use of its resources, given the constraints on the property. That they've been able to work this out. Being able to work that out is expensive. getting an easement so that this can have proper sewage drainage, which we all want, is important as well and important to consider. So that's why the additional, you're allowed to put more houses in an infill like this, is to make it cost, the reason it hasn't been developed before is because nobody could afford to build it with the standards that we had. It wasn't cost effective. And that means that we have the leeway so that we can get the infill in place and take care of these smaller little lots and odd lots and things that don't meet the normal plan. So I think this meets not just the requirements for infill, but also the spirit of it, that this is the point of having flexible standards for infill, is so that you can make allowances and try and get the things built out within the city so that we don't have to, take on additional lands with, that tax other resources, so.
I'd also like to point out that it's a preliminary plat, and
Yep.
so, I mean, they'll be held to certain things, but all the details as far as the exact site as you're coming out of the intersections and the elevations and how the road will be exactly along that property line are all things that will be worked out, and even worked out after the final plat phase. If this moves forward, those will be in the construction documents that will be reviewed and make sure that all those things meet code. Any other discussion or a motion?
I move that let me go look at the suggested motion here. I move that we approve the preliminary plat application from Duchesne Land, 2016 LLC, finding the application does meet the standards for approval under Chapter 16, 2050 of Pocatello Municipal Code with the conditions listed in the staff report.
Do we need to add that I can sign?
Oh, and I also, in my motion, include that we allow the chair to sign the findings of fact.
Thank you.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Hewlett, a second by Phillips. Aislinn, will you call vote?
Hewlett,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Chanda,
Yes.
Fenwick,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Ruth.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And with that, we will move on to agenda item number 5. This again is a public hearing. So I would like just to remind everybody of the things previously stated. And at this time, I will declare the public hearing open. And at this time, I would invite the applicant to come forward.
Good evening, Commission members. My name is Joel Dixon. I'm with Knudsen Engineering, 1070 Highline Road, Suite 325, Pocatello, Idaho, 83201, representing the applicant Brandon Ratliff on his preliminary plat for Land's End. It's fairly straightforward. I'll do my best to just keep the presentation brief and let the city staff give you the zoning background and information, sizing, and I'll touch more on our intents for the project and give some little supplementary information on why we chose to do things a certain way. I'm definitely available to answer any questions that you have, or if I need to for any rebuttal. So we are taking a 24 and almost a half acre parcel, and we are splitting it into 6 lots. 4 of them will be residential lots, about half acre each. The other 2 are effectively remainder lots for future development. We currently do not have any plans for them. I haven't done any layouts on those areas. And when we move forward for final plat and plans, We will only be proposing the improvements necessary to build those 4 lots. Everything to the south and to the east would be in a future phase. I've shown our intended utility paths and the walkway path on there just for reference, but those won't be built as part of this first phase that we do. So a little history, Fore Road was built up to the Women's Correctional Center, and it doesn't have a right-of-way. So as part of our project, we are going to be establishing a center line and a right-of-way for those roads and get that officially and just dedicated over to the public. And that's why we're not just doing that small section of 4 lots. That's why we have this whole 24. And there's also some quirky parcel things that we're working through as well that led us to doing the full 24 acres. For sewer, we're just connecting into the existing main lines. There's already 1 sewer service on our property. We will be constructing 3 more. For water, our original proposal was to tie into the water line that went through the gully. Discussions with staff, we're gonna need to tie into a different line from what we originally proposed. And we're okay with that. That is acceptable. We want water for our project, so whatever we need to do to make that happen. And then the walking trail. We, in our discussions with city staff and with the developer, we went back and forth between, do we want this to be sidewalk on each side, curb and gutter, with the roads already built? And we kind of came to an agreement or understanding, let's just put a wider pedestrian path along one side of the road, and we won't have any sidewalk on the other side. However, as we were coming up Fore Road, the daylight grade on the uphill side was just so close to the road and so steep that we would lose half of lots 3 and 4 just with slopes to make everything work the way we wanted. So we came with an alternative to come lower on Fore Road and up and around and tie back into our project. And so that's the way we can get from Fore Road all the way up to the intersection of what I'm calling City Reservoir Road and Fore Road, instead of coming along the northern perimeter of the 4 lots. Excuse me. And then lots 3 and 4 will be accessed by a shared access with lots 1 and 2 fronting off of City Reservoir Road. And so that would just be under an easement and not a public road. So there'll be no new roads dedicated, no road improvements other than those necessary for patching. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them. If anything comes up after staff presentation, I will still be just as happy to answer anything.
Will you, so we see these sections cut, and so the 60-foot section, is that all of Fore Road or some of Fore Road and some of it's the 50?
It's, I only have so much room for sections, but so there is some existing properties that we kind of had to work around. The project that's the Cornelison, that is 25 feet right of way on their half. But we wanted to put our sewer and water going to the southeast outside of the road itself. So we were proposing to do a 60-foot right of way so we can have room to put the water on one side of the road outside of the asphalt and water and the sewer and water on each side. But we were kind of constricted without getting them to either sell the land or be a part of this plat. So there are portions of this that are 60 feet, that's our intended size. And then there are portions that are do I have it on here? 50, and then there's portions that are 55, because we have the 25-foot on the Cornelsons, and we have 30 on the other. As we start getting, lining out the final plat, we can work with the city staff, surveyor, just to make sure that the way we're going is what makes this most sense to them as well. But we just thought having the extra 10 feet of right-of-way would be helpful, although it's a little confusing.
Okay, so 4 is going to be dedicated right away. Is City Reservation Road going to be dedicated? Or is it already dedicated right away?
I'm not aware of any dedicated right-of-way for either of those.
Okay.
I can't specifically say that the city wanted it to be right-of-way. It's my understanding they did, that I can have them clarify that. Right now, I'm proposing that it would be.
So the private drive is just that shared access?
Yeah, just for lots 3 and
Okay.
4.
Any other? No, okay. All right, thank you.
And then the road section and everything is pretty much the same between the 50 and the 60, but it's just mostly the right-of-way.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commission members, Matthew Lewis, Senior Planner. Had to get up just to move a little bit. I'm with the city. As noted, the request before you is for preliminary plat approval of a subdivision to be known as Lands End Subdivision. The proposal calls for the platting of 24.41 acres, more or less, into 6 single-family lots and 4 single-family lots and 2 future development lots. The property is zoned residential medium-density single-family. Under the RMS, a designation, a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet is required for single-family residents. The smallest lot proposed measures 22,651 square feet in size. A portion of the property has slopes of in excess of 15% grade. Therefore, development is subject to Code Section 1705.100 Slope Development Standards. Condition number 3 requires that a no-grade line shall be provided as part of the final plat on lots, on slopes abutting lots 2, 3, and 4. It should be noted that no grading will occur on lots 5 and 6. Such may occur with future developments. This property is really steep, so we'll really have to look at the slopes if there's any kind of development in the future on those. Lots 1 through 4 are provided access via a proposed private road from City Reservoir Road, which intersects with 4 Road. Should be noted that all property owners within a 300-foot radius of the existing property boundaries have been provided notice of the public hearing in order that they may provide comment on the application. Notice was also published in the Idaho State Journal on February 22nd of 2022, and a sign was posted on the subject property on February 23rd, 2022. At the time of completion of the staff report, one comment from the public has been received, neither in support nor in opposition to the application. There is if you look in your application, your applicant or your packets, attachment B kind of has a email thread through that, and that would kind of give you an idea of that. Staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat application, provided application finding that the application does meet the standards for approval under Chapter 16.20.050 of Municipal Code with the conditions listed in the staff report. This concludes my presentation. As always, happy to answer any questions. Also, Merrill's here if you'd like clarification on any of the road, sewer, and public works end of it. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commission.
Thank you. Any questions for Matt before he sits down? No? Okay. So at this, I'll just confirm one more time, besides what's in our packet, there's been no written correspondence. So we will begin public testimony. I would invite anybody providing testimony by those supporting the application to come forward. Anyone uncommitted to the application? Anyone opposed to the application? Would you like to rebuttal? It's going to be tough.
I'm fine if you're fine.
Okay, so at this time, I will declare the public hearing closed. Merrill, would you just give us a brief?
That was the attachment in the Public Works memo. That was supposed to be in there. Somehow it didn't get in there. So what that is where we are directing them where they can tie in. Because if you notice our reservoirs up there and we got multiple lines and pressure lines and stuff, that is the line that they've got to tie into. Then we'd talk to them, the developer, not the engineer, prior to him buying the property and showed him where we needed to. So I just wanted to make it clear there, and that's what that attachment is where they've got to do. And this also, we believe, where we've got the PRV there located in that, we'll be able to extend with least cost to the developer to develop the other two future big lots as he moves forward. So that's, and then we'll create the water loop and so forth for fire flow. So that's what that is a clarification. It was easier than trying to explain it on words, and I don't think I could do it.
Thank you.
Jeff?
Commission, discussion, questions? Motion?
I will make a motion. I move.
So I'm
Did you have a
sorry, I
question?
just have a quick question, and probably for Matthew, in regards to the shared access here that's going to serve lots 1 through 4. What I think of when I think of the shared access road is Ridgewood Road that shoots off the KOA in the county. It was put in as a private road to be shared access, and then when that area wasn't developed, the road fell into disrepair and people are still using it, but no one's maintained it. So what do we do in these situations to make sure that the road stays maintained?
This is more of a shared driveway. The example that you have doesn't really fit most of the things we have in Pocatello. That's an exception. But there will be an association formed with these 4 lots that will take care of their driveways.
Great.
And that'll have to be there, where your example is people started building and didn't have access, so there's a lot of history on that example that you're giving, so.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Merrill. One more question. Matt, could you just repeat what you said about lot 5, I believe, and maybe lot 6? I'm about the grade and...
Yeah, well, right now, both those lots, they included those lots. It's part of just the overall for possible future development. As you can tell from just the topography there, they're extremely steep. And so obviously they would be subject to slope development standards if and when they're ever developed there. To be quite honest, I think that the development is going to be quite limited on there, again, when that occurs, so.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Will that homeowner association take care of the crazy sidewalk? The hiking trail?
That's a good question. We're still working out those details, but I have to applaud the developer and engineer to
Being
work with the
creative,
city so that we could get creative to use even the city properties and that to be able to access up through there and to go that way, because we're very limited with this parcel too, these parcels, because what you see, this property owner, there's only one other property owner up there that is going to be building. He has 2 acres and building a single family home on it. The rest of you turn into the BLM and the state and the city property. So what you see on this plat is what you get for this area. So that's why, some more of that flexibility. Without the curb and gutter, we'll have ribbon curb and swells and so forth. It's again, another unique pocket that they're able to work on, and some of it's gonna be very limited. So we're still working through that. We're trying to make it so it's kind of like the Greenway Trail. At least we can get down to Grant.
Really like that idea.
Grant and move on for the walkability from up that top at that area, and those that go bike riding and so forth too, up City Creek and up along that. At least we got a path and we can avoid some of the roadways on those curves.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the staff willing to work with our developer on that, because I think that connectivity, especially in this particular area that has such a high recreational use, is really critical.
Correct.
The gentleman that had correspondence through email, where is his property located?
Is that Bevins?
Yeah.
And he left. He was sitting here.
Oh.
Steve Bevan was. He's down below. If you go down Ford Road and it hits Grant and it tees, he's the newer house just off to the south easterly direction there. But he owns, and his family and that owns a bunch of that property there, and then some other undeveloped parcels and a few things there. So he's down right there at basically the intersection and in that general area. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or a motion?
I'll try again to make a motion if there's no other questions. I move to recommend approval of the preliminary plat application from Brandon Ratliff for Land's End subdivision, finding the application does meet the standards for approval under the municipal code with the conditions listed in the staff report, and to authorize the chair to find the findings of fact.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Hewlett and a second by Roberts. Aislinn, will you call vote?
Hewlett,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Chanda,
Yes.
Fenwick,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Root.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. And with that, we will close tonight's commission meeting.